My entitled boss is giving discounts to his friends, pricing them at a much lower rate for my goods and services, which as a result means that I get a lower paycheck. And even though I've discussed this so many times with my boss, he refuses to pay me exactly what I'm worth. So I decided to get some revenge by literally wasting as much money from this company as possible as my own form of payback for the way that they've been treating me. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I work in a service industry, namely pest control, that pays me a percentage of what my customer pays as an extra paycheck on top of my normal hourly rate paychecks. For example, if I go to a customer whose bill is $100, I get $20. If I'm out sick that day and a coworker goes, they get it instead. Each month, the grand total is added up, a certain dollar value is removed for company baseline, and of what remains, I get 20%. And it is a bit more complex than this, but that's all that's really needed for the story. Now, my boss has a bad habit of giving discounts to friends of his, and it's usually below the company minimums that have been set for me and my coworkers if we were to sell the work ourselves. The problem is that despite these people not being my friends, I still got assigned to do the work, and now that customer has paid less, so I get paid less. I had brought up to them multiple times over the years that if they want their friends to pay less, that's fine, but in the computer, I should get my cut as if it was based on the full current price that the market demands. Well, each time, my boss's response has been to pull his phone out for his calculator and play off the $4 difference or whatever it is as insubstantial in the grand scheme of my total paycheck. They have so far proven incapable of understanding how disrespectful this is to me. But seriously, if it is such a meaningless and small amount, then why is it so hard to pay it to me? You know, the person who actually did the labor. Never mind the fact that not only do these stack up against me, but we are not a very financially successful company, and we just can't afford discounts. It's a matter of principle. Anyways, they are effectively pinching pennies out of my paycheck, and it's all justified under the current system because longtime customers also have similarly low prices. So it's just supposed to be considered one of those things. Now, nothing illegal is happening with my pay, strictly speaking, but instead there's just an absence of respect and morals. And you know what? This happened again despite recent discussions, and I'm now starting to snap. And it's right about now that my revenge takes place. I fill up my work truck usually every 3 days. So combined with all of the other employees, naturally the gasoline bill is a regular talking point about trying to keep it low. I've always had a strong work ethic and tried to do my part for efficiency even before the first time I heard the gas speech in a meeting. If I had a personal errand to run, which by the way is something we're allowed to do within reason, I would wait days or sometimes weeks until I was driving in that area. I was one of the first to go above and beyond and reorganize my routes, just so I was in one neighborhood per day, also that I could save gas. But at this point, after what they did to me, no longer. My work truck is GPS tracked, and if they ever stop being lazy enough to start checking, they are going to notice a sudden loss of efficiency. And you know what? If they ask, I'm going to pull out my calculator and suggest it's a negligible difference that they should just get over, because the way they're treating me is absolutely unfair. Wow, your boss sucks so bad. Seriously, he's giving discounts to his friends at your expense. You're literally losing money, and this guy's trying to be like, well, it's just $4. It's not that big of a deal. And it's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? This is my money you're screwing with. So yeah, you know what? If I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. I would be so unproductive, and I would be looking for another job, because what you're describing doesn't sound like a good working environment in the slightest. And I definitely think you deserve way better than the way that they're treating you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for adding my cousin as a bridesmaid after my sister said she's not attending my wedding? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated by my sister, and at this point I'm honestly not sure what to do next. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female and I'm getting married soon, and my older sister doesn't want to come. The issue started when she said I don't talk to her about anything wedding related, and she wouldn't be doing any kind of speech. She was supposed to be a bridesmaid, but she left the group chat and RSVP'd online saying that she was attending, but then later said that she's not attending. Now, I'm a people pleaser, and I've always had a hard time being the center of attention. I've never really had a moment to myself where I get to call the shots. For example, at my baby shower, even though I picked the Nightmare Before Christmas theme and wanted specific things, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, my sister, and aunt took control of the entire event. The theme was kept, but everything else was changed. And don't get me wrong, I appreciated the effort, but it wasn't what I imagined. I've never been one to ask for much, and I often felt left out growing up, never really getting new or expensive things for my birthday or holidays. I also don't like people spending too much money on me, but it's been really hard because I never get a moment to enjoy things for myself. So when my sister dropped out of of the wedding, I added my cousin as a bridesmaid. She feels more like a sister to me, and she's been supportive throughout the whole wedding planning. I feel like my sister would be upset if she knew, but I don't want her back in the wedding party. I also want my nieces and nephews to be there, and my sister seems to crave attention and wants everything her way. For example, she suggested dancers for my bachelorette party, if you know what I mean, which is totally not my vibe since I am an introvert, and I just want to have a simple day that's about me. My sister-in-law was going to do the thank you speech because I have really bad anxiety, and I'm already feeling overwhelmed and stressed from the wedding planning, but I don't want my sister to feel like she's being excluded if she chooses to attend as a guest. I just want everything to go smoothly and to have a day where I can feel comfortable and at ease. So am I the jerk for adding my cousin as a bridesmaid and not wanting my sister back in the wedding party? She also didn't even ask me about her feeling left out, which I never intended to do. But she also never called or messaged me asking about details or anything. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, this is a classic case of if they want to act weird, then let them. So if your sister really wants to back out because you didn't talk about this enough with her, then go ahead and let her. She has no right to be upset if you replace her for the stuff she doesn't want to do, because at the end of the day, this is your wedding. This is not hers. This is not your aunt's or your mother-in-law's. This is yours, and you absolutely have every say in what you do and don't want. So if she really doesn't want to talk to you about it and is acting like standoffish, then fine, don't show up and don't be a part of it, because that, in my opinion, is some weird energy, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not getting my ex-roommate's mail to her in a timely manner, even though I asked her to change her address over a year ago? Because right now, she apparently has a large debt when it comes to tolls that she's ran through. And after she blamed me for all of this, while also claiming she would press charges against me, I now feel incredibly bad, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my ex-roommate and I did not end on good terms. We were best friends, and I was looking to move out on my own. And when she suddenly lost her roommate, she asked me to move in with her. I told her I didn't like her area and that I was looking elsewhere. Then she decided to move out of her place and rent something with me instead. Now, I agreed because we were very good friends, and the rent would be cheaper. However, I made it clear that she needed to commit to the lease. Well, 3 months into the lease, she suddenly left without saying anything. Now, of course, I was upset because I had to find a new roommate. A few months later, she apologized and I accepted her apology. During this time, she explained the reason she left, and she admitted it was her fault and promised that this reason wouldn't get in the way of our friendship. She also promised that whenever we meet up, she wouldn't bring this reason into the picture. But unfortunately, that turned out to be a complete lie. Many of the things she promised not to do to rebuild our friendship, she just did anyways, and I eventually decided to remove her from my friend group. Throughout this time, I repeatedly asked her to change her address, and I gave her her mail. When she finally crossed a line, I simply couldn't tolerate it, and at that point, I just started forwarding her mail to her. Now, a year later, the mail I forwarded never reached her because she never updated her address, and her toll fines apparently accumulated to be pretty high. My ex-roommate now blames me because she didn't get her mail and says she's going to press charges against me. Now, I do feel bad, but she left that address over a year ago. I never felt it was my responsibility to manage her mail, and I simply didn't want any more contact with her. So am I the jerk for forwarding her mail instead of texting her and letting her know that I was still receiving it? Because right now she is still incredibly pissed off. No, you're not the jerk. This roommate sounds like an idiot. From my understanding, it's not that hard to switch your address. So it sounds like your roommate's just super lazy and she's somehow blaming you for this. So no, this is all her fault, and any debt that she's getting, in my opinion, is her own problem. And the fact that she's trying to blame this on you, in my opinion, is completely ridiculous. My boyfriend has effectively steamrolled over all my boundaries when it comes to food, as he always demands to eat some of my food regardless of what it is or where we're at. But now, after dealing with this for so long, I seriously feel like I'm losing my mind, because at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been together for about a year and a half. When we first started seeing each other, I was very clear and kind of straightforward about my boundaries around food. At the time, I didn't like to share what was on my plate. Whenever I had a snack or a meal or anything else, I would always make more than enough to share with my boyfriend if he was over at my place. But he always insisted on having a bite off of my plate. He did the same with anything I was drinking. He wouldn't want me to pour him his own, but would drink off of mine. He would also do things that I found a bit strange, like insisting that we eat out of the same bowl or plate and then use the same fork or spoon, just passing it back and forth between bites. I don't really like eating like this, and I expressed that, but he would say things like, "We're going to share and you're gonna like it," and just generally get pouty and tell me that I was being selfish and weird when I attempted to hold any kind of boundary on this front. Eventually, I learned to live with it. In fact, I actually started enjoying sharing food a lot more, and I now always offer a bite of what I'm eating, whether I'm at home or at a restaurant. I realize it's not okay to let someone steamroll over your boundaries like this, but I see the overall end result as positive. My boyfriend no longer does the dish sharing thing, but he will insist that I eat first, and then he will serve himself using my plate and fork. Now this makes me sad because it means we often don't actually eat together, but it isn't the end of the world, so I don't really see a point in arguing. But even still, here's my issue. There are still times every once in a while where I don't want to share my food. This is rare, but it does happen, and it's made me fully realize that my boyfriend cannot take no for an answer when it comes to food. He simply has to eat a bite of my food or drink off of my drink, and I don't even think it's about him being hungry. At this point, I've taken to eating in secret if there's something I want to enjoy by myself, because seriously, I'd rather not deal with the hassle. He will also get upset if I eat a snack and I just don't tell him, like on the level where if he sees a wrapper in the trash can or something like that, or even something that I might have ate and I didn't mention or share it with him, he will confront me about it every single time. I just can't express enough that I don't think I'm a selfish or unreasonable person. I just don't always like sharing my food. How do I communicate this to my partner in a way that lets us have a productive conversation where I don't get shut down in some kind of way? I'm trying to reflect on my ability to set boundaries in the relationship in general, and I'm starting to worry that my boyfriend and I just don't have the healthiest dynamic. What should I do? Okay, this is a really weird situation because what your boyfriend's doing is just straight up strange. You're telling me he wants you to use the same fork and knife that he's using, basically with you guys switching back and forth? I don't know about you, but I love my significant other, but if they did that to me, I'd be like, ew, that's disgusting. Like, I can understand that happening like once in a blue moon, but the fact that he wants to do that every single time is seriously weird in my opinion. But I also just can't stand the fact that this guy's like, wow, you didn't share with me, what's wrong with you? You're gonna like this and there's nothing you could do about it. It's like, what's going on right now? That is so weird. That doesn't sound like a loving boyfriend. If anything, that sounds like someone who's like super controlling. So no, you're not in the wrong for wanting to have some kind of boundary and for trying to set up some kind of dynamic where he's not obsessed with food all the time. Because what you've described, in my opinion, sounds incredibly weird, and I don't blame you for a second for getting upset. My entitled coworker tried to convince herself that she was now my mom, as she took it upon herself to not only monitor what I eat every single day, but also telling people that she's training me to try and learn how to eat healthier foods. But after trying to explain to her multiple times that my mom just passed away and that the way she's acting is completely unacceptable, I finally snapped, putting her in her place in a way that she truly did not expect. Here's what happened. So when I was in my early 30s, I used to work in this apartment complex for university students. Our front office staff had a ridiculous turnover rate, to the point that for over half my 4 years there, I was the only full-time front staff. Management hired a new full-time person who we will call Emily. Emily was a few years younger than me. She was multilingual, had a degree in hospitality and sales, and had just moved to my state. Now, there are two important things you need to know about me. My mom had recently passed away, and I am overweight. Part of my job involved lots of lifting and carrying heavy packages up the long, steep hill our complex was situated over, so I'm fairly muscular and rather fit under my extra fluff, which I am very proud of. By contrast, my mom never got above 110 pounds in her whole life. She meant well, but almost 30 years of her picking at me about my weight had made it kind of a sore subject. Things went well for a while, and then Emily's obsession with healthy eating started. I mentioned a restaurant, and she pulled up a menu to tell me what to order with a comment about being my mom now, but I shut it down and told her about the loss in my family. She brought meals for me and got offended I didn't want them. She saw my soda and told me not to drink those anymore, and if I had a snack of some kind, she would open a bag of trail mix and cross to my desk with it. I saw what was about to happen in slow motion, so I flung both hands over my snack to shield my food, and she upended the entire bag onto my plate. Now, I didn't like nuts, so I had to throw the whole thing away. I told her several times to stop, and she apologized, but she didn't change the behavior. I even involved management, and they said that she was just being friendly, and this went on for at least 6 months. Then came the final straw. I don't remember what brought it up, but she was talking to a resident, glanced across at me, and chirped out, "I'm teaching her to be healthy. I'm like her mom." And as a fun fact, she was completely misgendering me, which I also talked to her about repeatedly. I'm non-binary and I use they, them pronouns. Well, at this point, I saw red. Usually, I would have waited for the resident to leave and addressed her patiently in private again, but this time I couldn't do it. It was one pick too many, not least of all because she didn't even address the comment to me, but about me to one of our residents. At this point, I snapped. I pushed out my desk and said something to the effect of, "I had a mom and she's dead and you are not her. Stop trying to act like it." Well, after that, the entire climate of the office changed. Emily stopped talking to me and eventually quit, which I still feel bad about, but only a little bit. Management froze me out for making the workplace hostile, and while I did quit not long after that. I will say I'm much happier where I am right now. Oh my gosh, talk about management not doing their job. If I had somebody up on my case constantly monitoring what I eat all the time, I think I would lose my mind on that person, especially if they're gonna try and pretend to be my mom. Like if I had a mom who just passed away, I would go nuts if someone's like, oh, I'm your mom now. It's like, no, you're not. Don't you dare try to make that assumption. So good for you for taking a stand and not taking that for a second, because the way she was treating you, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. My toxic former boss treated me like garbage for the entirety of my employment with him for 10 months, as he made my life a living nightmare by making inappropriate comments, as well as treating me like dirt. So I decided to get some petty revenge by convincing him that one of his idols thought so low of him that he would never have a chance to repair that relationship in his life. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at someone. Here's what happened. Okay, so my cousin has these friends, and we'll call them Sandra and Greg for the sake of the story. Now, they are a married couple, and they have, over the years, been kind of absorbed into my family. Every holiday and social event that would normally be just family, they always had an invitation. I think my cousin had some sort of family meeting with all the people who consistently host stuff and asked them, but I'm not fully clear on that. Now, cut to me at the age of 16 years old, and I'm looking for my first job. And when I'm at one of these family gatherings, Sandra and Greg tell everyone that they are opening an ice cream shop. Greg has a local tech company and has been involved with local government in our small town, and he also owns properties that he rents out. Well, I jump at this opportunity, telling them that I was looking for a job. A few months later, the place is ready to open, and I have an interview. Now, this should have been my first sign that things would be weird working for them, but that may just be in hindsight because I had nothing to compare it to at the time. The interview was at Greg's other company with a table of 3 interviewers: Greg, Sandra, and their general manager. Now, the questions felt like they were trying to grill me on ice cream facts mostly, and when the interview was said and done, Greg admitted to just messing with me since he knew me. Well, this job was an absolute nightmare. I only worked there for 10 months because I simply couldn't take it anymore. My opinion of those people changed from neutral to straight up hatred and disgust. Greg would often talk to all of the teenage employees about their spicy history, if you know what I mean, tell in-depth stories about his own at our age, and tease the people he knew personally like me who lacked any of these spicy experiences, again, if you know what I mean. I vividly remember him talking to me and another employee about some of the suggestive games you can find in virtual reality and asked if we wanted to try it one day, and that he had a headset that he could lend us. And this is all on top of the workplace mismanagement. I was the only employee on pay stubs, with most of the other employees on direct deposit, and I would often have to remind him to pay me. He would normally say that he just forgot, but it happened almost a dozen times, with my longest wait time being a month and a half. We also had a shirt calendar, where every employee had to wear a certain color work shirt depending on the day of the week, and many employees were written up for not wearing the correct shirt. Sandra and Greg would also let their friends hang out at the counter, throw pennies in our tip jar one after the other, because of course, every time we got a tip, we rung a bell and cheered. They would also bother us, ask personal questions, and a ton of other rude and intrusive stuff. But here is the worst of it all. I came out to my work best friend at the closing shift out back behind the dumpsters, and Greg took the footage from the security cameras and sent it to my cousin, who then sent it to my parents. And it all came to my attention on the day of a huge family wedding, in which both Sandra and Greg attended. This was a common occurrence. Greg got drunk a lot at home by himself and would watch the security cameras and call into the store to micromanage. I have plenty of stories about this place, and I could go on for pages, but onto the petty revenge itself. I quit during the season of firings because a group chat had leaked that was essentially the employees crapping on the owners and manager, which I was on, but pretty neutral. And the revenge itself comes in through a connection my mom has with this guy that we will call Evan. Evan is a high-level stockbroker for a major company. He's incredibly wealthy and successful, and he worked with Greg on the Chamber of Commerce in our town briefly. My brothers and his kids have activities together, so we make conversation sometimes. Fast forward to 2 nights ago, and I'm at a family outing to this vineyard for music and drinks when Greg approaches me to ask me how college and work are going, now that apparently I'm Mr. Hollywood. And for reference, I work in entertainment as a writer and a creative consultant. I told him coldly that things were good, and he proceeds to ask me some condescending questions about finances, and even went as far as to discourage me from pursuing my career even further, telling me that I should drop out of school. Now, I would normally just take this kind of comment from family, but you know what? He isn't family. So I decided to say, yeah, well, Evan has been helping me out with my finances. And when I said that, his face lit up. Now, for context, my mom told me something a while back about how Greg really idolizes Evan. So I took full advantage of that and furthered the conversation. I said to him, yeah, you've actually come up a few times in our conversations conversations going over old income records. He then said to me, "Oh really? Well, what did you tell him?" I then gave him a blank stare and I said, "I told him whatever you think I told him." Now this made his smile drop, and I said to him, "Good luck patching that one up. I hear it's hard to get Evan's respect after you lost it so devastatingly." But I wouldn't know, he actually likes me. And then after that, I just walked away. Now for more context, I didn't fully lie. Me and Evan had one conversation about Greg where he basically said he always thought he was a sleazy guy. The only thing that I lied about was my changing of Evan's opinion on him, which isn't true. Evan never respected him in the first place. Now my mom is a little upset that I stirred the pot after 3 years, but I honestly just don't give a crap, because if you pay your employees on time and don't change their punch-in code to something super inappropriate, then maybe better things will happen to you in the future. Wow, Greg and Sandra sound like absolute pieces of crap, and I grouped both of them in even though Greg's like the main assailant, because Sandra was clearly just letting this all happen. But with Greg specifically, his comments were so out of line, from the nasty suggestive comments, as well as all the times he made you feel like crap. Like that is so uncalled for, it's honestly not even funny. So with all things considered, I think what you did to this guy was so deserved. He literally treated you like garbage and tried to once again get in your head and be like, "Oh, you should quit your job and quit your career." So the fact that you got back at him by basically convincing him that you had somehow ruined this relationship he super valued, in my opinion, is something that he absolutely deserved. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.